From Buffalo Toronto Public Media and WBFO, this is What's Next Producers Picks, highlights from conversations heard on previous episodes. On today's show,
just my goal of creating access to opportunities for all people, right? 10 years ago, I never dreamed that I would be the president of a training center, right? But there was someone who believed in me. There was someone who mentored me, who gave me that access that I needed to develop professionally. And I was prepared when this opportunity presented itself.
We hear from Stephen Tucker, the president and CEO of the Northland Workforce Training Center. And we close with,
we consider us not just an organization, but a movement. And to do that, to stay relevant, you always need to be bringing in the voice of youth. You always need to bring in the voice of the next generation. So the young professionals is essential in that space.
Two guests from the Buffalo Urban League, President and CEO Thomas Beauford Jr. and President of the Young Professionals, Darnell Haywood Jr. I'm Thomas O'Neill White. Thanks for listening. We start with my conversation with Stephen Tucker from the Northland Workforce Training Center. We discuss the center's recent development grants and new clean technology lab, in addition to returning Buffalo to its place as a major manufacturing area. Creating a manufacturing ecosystem in the Northland Beltline, is more than just, it's more than just the workforce. You want to spur economic development in that area.
Yeah, the whole concept for Northland Workforce Training Center was born out of the Regional Economic Development Council that was formed here in Western New York back in 2011. At that time, the council identified 3 strategies that we wanted to focus on to prioritize economic development investments. Those strategies were placemaking. How do we invest in places where we can leverage assets in the community to have the biggest impact on people? Also, innovation. How do we support the small businesses to create jobs, to support our economy moving forward? And you can't have any effective economic development strategy without a workforce development strategy. And with that, the state, through the Buffalo Billion, invested $65 million to revitalize the Northland Corridor. And it's more than just training.
Right.
One of the things that we added was a restaurant, Manna at Northland. They are now providing high-quality food, a place where Eastside residents can go on fellowship and get great food in a great environment and a great atmosphere. Bank on Buffalo, they moved in there providing financial services for Eastside residents. Retech Systems, that's a new company who relocated to the Beltline from California, creating additional jobs along with Rodriguez Construction, Garwood Medical Devices. So it's more than just training. We're actually creating jobs as well as resources in the Northland Beltline.
Talk to me a little bit about building relationships. I mean, you listed a number of people that when you came aboard, and the Northland Training Center was getting in motion. You listed off a number of local groups, local businesses that were partners.
Yeah, our founding members really consisted of the Buffalo Urban League, Catholic Charities, as well as Goodwill Industries. They came together to rebirth a dormant nonprofit called the Economic Development Group. So our official name is the Economic Development Group, doing business as Northland Workforce Training Center. In addition, we wanted to have an industry partner because everything we do is driven by business and industry. And the Buffalo Niagara Manufacturing Alliance, they are an industry association consisting of 200 small, medium, and large-size employers who all have members that need employees. Those 200 members have over 20,000 job openings, right? So collectively, we came together along with Alfred State and SUNY Erie Community College to deploy this strategy, and it's been effective ever since.
Was it easy to get that buy-in from them?
Definitely not easy, but we were able to come together, and now we're operating more efficiently and effectively. Interestingly enough, some of the most difficult individuals to get the buy-in from was from the community, because um, Buffalo is a cynical city, right?
Yeah.
We have to see it to believe it, and even when we see it, we're not going to buy into it unless we see people who look like us or look like members of the community benefiting from it.
Right. And I was going to ask you, like, you had to have run into a lot of naysayers.
Ran
on the
into a
way
lot
up.
of naysayers. There was a lot of community activists who, even though we were making this investment, felt like people of color and Eastside residents wouldn't be able to benefit. And even after we opened, they felt like, oh, okay, people are not going to get jobs. And even after we started placing people in jobs, well, people are not going to last in their jobs. But slowly and over time, we've built that trust in the community. And we allow community members to utilize the center, a brand new $65 million facility, to fellowship, to have community events, to have community meetings. We're more than just a training center. We're a place where the community can gather. We have different events such as Christmas parties. We have Halloween parties. We do Thanksgiving giveaways. We have Food Truck Thursdays, engaging the community in East Buffalo. So we're definitely more than just a training center.
And you and I, we're not from Buffalo. I recall you're from Cincinnati.
I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio. Yes.
And I'm from Louisville.
Okay.
So and it's, the longer you live here, I think the better you understand why they call this place the City of Good Neighbors. Community is so important here.
Community is definitely so important, but I also think that, unfortunately, Buffalo has a history of racism, a history of segregation, and we have to deal with that, and we are dealing with that. And I think that's what led to the cynicism that we ran into.
Right.
But now we are starting to overcome that. Are we there where we want to be? Definitely not, but I think we're definitely on our way.
I want to just read a quote that you had that's on your website. What we want to be doing is more intentional inclusion and upskilling of machinists that are coming out of Northland, to then be upskilled into automation a few years down the road, so we can continue that career upward mobility of folks, so that they cannot just become people that are making a living wage, but the ones that are becoming innovators. Where is that born from?
Just my goal of creating access to opportunities for all people, right? 10 years ago, I never dreamed that I would be the president of a training center, right? But there was someone who believed in me. There was someone who mentored me, who gave me that access that I needed to develop professionally. And I was prepared when this opportunity presented itself. And that's what we want to do at Northland Workforce Training Center. We want to prepare individuals for what's next. Our tagline is actually train and prepare for what's next. And that's really what we're focused on.
What will it take for Buffalo to regain its status as a vibrant manufacturing sector?
I think we're already on our way.
Uh-huh.
And the evidence is, a couple of years ago, we received funding from an Economic Development Administration grant called Build Back Better. Build Back Better was focused on revitalizing communities, as well as propping up the manufacturing assets in those communities. A couple of organizations who benefited from Build Back Better was the Buffalo Urban Development Corporation. They are revitalizing parcels of industrial space in East Buffalo, preparing them for manufacturing companies to create jobs. Also, Goodwill Industries, they're a partner of ours. They have a good skills program preparing entry-level workers to enter the talent pipeline. And the other partner that benefited from the Build Back Better investment, which was $25 million, by the way, was the Buffalo Manufacturing Works. They are also located within the Northland corridor, and collectively, the Northland Workforce Training Center, Buffalo Manufacturing Works, Insight Consulting, and the Buffalo Niagara Manufacturing Alliance, we want to create what we're calling the Advanced Manufacturing and Clean Energy Corridor right on the Northland Beltline campus.
How close are we to closing the skills gap? I know that's everyone's always talking about that. You've talked about that a lot. Where are we right now?
I think we got a long way to go. I think we have a plan. I think we've created career pathways. Officially, the skills gap in Western New York is around 20,000 in the next 10 years. 3,000 job openings right now. Across the country is 2 million.
Wow.
To really close the skills gap, we really need an all hands on deck approach, not just the Northland Workforce Training Centers, but we need Northland Workforce Training Center. We need BOCES. BOCES are CTE programs for individuals attending suburban school districts.
Mm-hmm.
We need Buffalo Public Schools with their career tech education programs. We need SUNY Erie. We need Alfred State. We need all of the workforce trainers to come together to play a role in building a pipeline to close that skills gap.
How do other entities, such as government, play a role in that?
So government play a significant role in making these investments in institutions, in people. Philanthropy also plays a significant role, as well as the private sector. The private sector, which is businesses who are actually hiring our graduates, they can't grow their businesses if there's not talent to assist them with manufacturing their products or working in their facilities. So it really takes an all-hands-on-deck approach.
How do you do outreach? Given the lack of awareness locally about these career opportunities, I know in a previous What's Next episode, you compared it to football, a ground and an air attack.
Yeah, you remember that.
I do.
So one of the things about outreach and awareness is that it's critically important because people drive past these manufacturing facilities every day.
Yeah.
People drive past Tesla in South Buffalo unaware that they're making solar shingles, right? Renewable energy solar shingles being sold across the world. People drive past General Motors in Tonawanda unaware that they make Corvette engines. Corvette is my favorite car.
Yeah.
They're making the engine right here in Buffalo. People drive past Harmac, which is a medical device company in East Buffalo. They don't have any idea that they're making a product that's making the quality of life better for individuals throughout the world. And the individuals working in those facilities are making $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year. They're making a great wage. So we need to raise awareness that these careers and these companies exist here. And once we raise awareness, we then need to encourage individuals, if they're interested, to pursue their training at Northland Workforce Training Center.
Northland has received some funding, some grants from the state. I believe it's over $2 million from 2 different grants through the Office of Strategic Workforce Development. And part of that money will go to the development of a clean technology training lab. What is that, and what's its purpose?
So clean technology, have you heard of a smart building, a smart commercial building? Or just imagine when you go into buildings that are recently constructed, you can walk in and the lights turn on.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's a lot of automation in these facilities,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
These facilities are very energy efficient, right? They use multiple energy sources, whether it's solar, whether it's wind, whether it's heat pumps. So smart technology is the newest technology that we are training and preparing individuals for: solar, wind, battery storage, microgrids, electric vehicle charging stations. We want to position Buffalo and West New York as a hub where individuals can access these careers. And with the funding from the Office of Strategic Workforce Development, we're actually going to construct a smart commercial building within Northland Workforce Training Center to train the next generation of workers with that talent.
What are some of the obstacles that you've run into over the last 6 years, 5-6 years? Sure, there's been a few.
That's a great question, because whenever you are implementing a new strategy, there's always naysayers. But my philosophy, I mentioned before, do what you do best, partner for the rest, but also building the coalition of the willing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And with the coalition of the willing, everybody like-minded, open-minded, with a collaborative approach, focused on outcomes and having an impact, not only for the people who we are training, but for the businesses that we're preparing them for, getting those small wins, getting people to graduate, getting people to come back and become instructors, helping people achieve a family sustainable wage, helping individuals advance in their careers. And as we get those small wins, we build the momentum. But to answer your question specifically, some of the challenges that we faced was just demonstrating and proving that this concept could work because it had never been done before.
Talk to me a little bit about this tech hub status. You briefly mentioned it just a minute ago, but Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse was recently designated as a tech hub. What does that mean for Buffalo, Western New York, and kind of like this region west of Syracuse?
And a few minutes ago, you asked me a question. How do we prop Buffalo up to be considered a manufacturing sector? And I mentioned that it's already happening. I mentioned Build Back Better. Tech Hubs is another example of that. The Tech Hubs project is going to combine Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse to create a tech hub of technology really focused on semiconductor manufacturing. There's a heavy push with the CHIPS Act to onshore, meaning bringing the manufacturing and the production of microchips from China, from overseas, back to the United States. And normally, those types of resources or those types of hubs are in Silicon Valley, right? When you look at technology.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Why couldn't it be New York State? Specifically, why couldn't it be Syracuse, Buffalo, and Rochester? And now it is. Micron is creating a brand new facility in Syracuse, and they're going to need downstream suppliers to help manufacture semiconductors, and that's what Buffalo and Rochester is going to play in. So it's a huge designation, a huge opportunity for us in Western New York and those three cities. Now we just got to work diligently to make sure that we are prepared to take advantage of this opportunity.
And just to play devil's advocate for a minute, I mean, there's people who will say, well, this place is not a tech hub. It doesn't need to be. These jobs can stay over on the West Coast. We need to be creating jobs that we had in the past or that are more, I don't know, Midwest Rust Belt centric. What do you say to that?
I think my response is look at our history and look at our past, right? And this is what I mean by that. If you're not evolving as a region, you're going to be left behind. And I believe previously we didn't evolve quick enough in response to all the steel mills leaving, in terms of all of the blue collar positions leaving, and it left a huge gap in our economy. We really want to be forward thinking. We really want to be thinking about the evolving economy and position ourselves to take advantage of these new opportunities because it's going to happen. Why not happen here in Buffalo, in Rochester, and Syracuse?
You think you stay here?
I'm here. I'm going to be here for a while.
Talk to me real quick about, I don't think we got into it that much, just like recruitment through BPS and the programs they have there through Buffalo Public Schools.
Yeah, so Buffalo Public Schools, they've been a great partner for Northland since our inception. They have several CTE programs. CTE is Career Tech Education Programs. So does BOCES. But specifically with Buffalo Public Schools, we have a couple of dual enrollment programs in partnership with Alfred State. At Burgard for auto tech, for machining, for welding. At South Park for mechatronics. At McKinley High School for electrical. We have our outreach and recruiting specialists. They go out to the schools. They present to the students. We bus students over to learn more about these careers. We also have a summer program in partnership with Mayor Brown, where we bring over 100 to 150 Buffalo Public School students, 9th through 12th grade, every summer.
Okay.
They're paid an internship. They're paid to be there. They rotate through all of our partner company. They rotate through all of our programs, and they visit all of our partner companies. So those are some of the strategies that we've deployed with Buffalo Public Schools.
Do you ever take a walk through the schools that have those programs?
I have before, yes, of course.
What does that look like?
It looks almost like Northland, right?
Really?
Yeah, they have equipment very similar to ours. They have lab setups very similar to ours. It's very refreshing and very energizing. What we need to do, though, is to encourage more students to take advantage of those career opportunities.
That was Northland Workforce Training Center President and CEO Stephen Tucker. And we close today's show with Jay Moran speaking with Thomas Beauford Jr. and Darnell Haywood Jr. from the Buffalo Urban League, looking at trends impacting people of color, including assaults on democracy, book banning, the erosion of voting access, and suppressing history.
Let's just get into a generality about the Buffalo Urban League.
Sure.
What is the Buffalo Urban League?
So the Buffalo Urban League is an affiliate of the National Urban League. We're one of about 90 affiliates, the Buffalo Urban League. We were established in 1927 here in Buffalo, so, making our way towards a centennial. And, we're principally concerned with empowering our community and changing lives through our many programs and services. And when we talk about the community, we're greatly concerned with Black and brown communities and other underserved members of the population, and really helping them with economic empowerment and addressing all of what we might consider social determinants of health and wealth.
A lot to get into there, and we're most
Yes.
certainly looking forward to expanding on the discussion. I want to just turn it to Darnell just a little bit, because although you are the president of the Buffalo Urban League Young Professionals, as we mentioned, just going up here, it's a full-time job, but yet it's not your job. Your job is with Bank on Buffalo.
That's true.
How about give us a little overview of the Young Professionals then.
So the Young Professionals is an affiliate of the Buffalo Urban League.
Okay.
So what we do is to empower young professionals ages 21 to 40 through different programs, different activities. I know we spoke earlier as well, but a lot of times we're considered more so of a networking group, but it's not. We play hard, but we work harder.
Right.
So we want to develop that professional development, but as well as we do have different networking events as well.
Let's turn that right back to Thomas then. The young professionals and that professional development, how important is that to the greater goals of what the Urban League is all about?
I mean, it's essential. I mentioned earlier that we were formed in 1927. So when you talk about any organization that has been around almost 100 years, even with its mission, we consider us, not just an organization, but a movement. And to do that, to stay relevant, you always need to be bringing in the voice of youth. You always need to bring in the voice of the next generation. So the young professionals is essential in that space. They bring in through their networks, through the contacts that they have, the programming that they influence, and just what they bring to the organization in terms of keeping us aware of what's important to them and for the next generation and their demographic. So it's extremely important.
And maybe we can open up this to both of you then. So let's talk about what that voice is. Those young voices are saying right now. What are you hearing, Thomas, when it comes to them? What sticks out to you when you think the young professionals, the younger people that are getting involved in the Urban League? What is the message or messages that are coming your way?
Many of whom are in a place where they're trying to decide on what their careers might be or advance their careers, and they are in some of the spaces that many people, Black and brown people, find themselves in, is that not an equal playing field, and we're there to provide tools. So they're looking for guidance, they're looking for tools, for resources, and they're also looking at their individual and collective strengths in helping to navigate through all these challenges, as well as being a voice of advocacy to make change to these policies and really understand what the process is to make change, whether it be through voting and empowering who is creating structures, and also general awareness and anything that they can do to help navigate, but also to help change the landscape as well.
How about you heard Thomas use the uneven playing field. I mean, it's not anything particularly new, but you're somebody, you're a successful professional. You're working with these young professionals as well. Probably some maybe are at a certain level. Others are trying to navigate that uneven playing field. What do you find with your group in that regard?
You know, you think of the different workforces that's out there, the different jobs, the different companies that's out there, and a lot of times within these black and brown areas, you don't see, or even within these different companies, you don't see a lot of individuals that look like you, or even look at the C-suite. You don't see a lot of individuals that look like you in those particular positions. And what we want to do is, one, to create programs, do different networking events with these companies to let them know that you do have these professionals that's out there that are, one, educated to be in these specific fields as well.
Can you go through maybe just reflecting a little bit on your time? Now you've been in the banking business for almost 20 years, so you've got some experience. But when you were starting out, did you feel that, besides the fact that, like you said, you maybe didn't see people that looked like you, but did you have a sense inside some of those opportunities early on that this is going to be a tough road?
You know, I will say for me, yes. The one goal that I set for myself personally was to, every 2 years, I wanted to achieve a different role in banking. And whether it was to shadow with someone, or even now, the role that I'm in now, I actually created my role at Bank Home Buffalo. So every 2 years, I shadowed and mentored with someone. I chose someone as a mentor. And I mean, it was difficult because you would see other individuals being promoted at that time. And I knew I was qualified for that role, but I still fought. I learned that during the time I still was in school as well. So I was able to graduate, go to school, become a manager in this particular role, oversee a department in that role. And yeah, I will say it was definitely difficult. And even thinking now, what I started in banking in 2006, and even looking now in 2023, looking at a banking scope now, since I've been in banking, that's been my career, you still don't see a lot of individuals of color in those higher roles. And you have that talent that's out there. And we just need to let them know that we're out there, and we're ready.
Thomas, very much like Darnell, maybe your look doesn't give away your age. Darnell, it's hard to believe he's been in banking 20, and I'm not sure how old you are, so I'm not going to ask. But that being stated, how about for you, your path as you went along? How did you navigate through? And if you are a little bit older than Darnell, it was maybe even a little more difficult.
No secrets here. And I'll just share with you that I joined the Buffalo Urban League as a CEO in 2020, fall of 2020. As its only its fifth leader since 1927. So, I had some very tenured leaders before me. My predecessor was there over 20 years, and, other great leaders, some over 30. That said, prior to joining the Urban League, I had a 4-year career in banking.
Oh, okay. So you know all about it.
So a little bit about that, and, started my career in New York City, and I joined HSBC, which was, here. But HSBC had an international management program. A boy from Brooklyn, I was very, I had my sights set on, I had a taste of it from a previous organization. Although it was more of a family-owned bank, and you had to be in a circle to really get those assignments that took you abroad. And when I moved to HSBC, or actually when HSBC acquired that company, they had a program, and it was actually based on an application, and it did have some semblance of meritocracy, right? So, I applied immediately, and that was probably in 1999, and so I did have a chance to work, live abroad, expand on my operations knowledge, bigger teams, bigger projects. So I worked in Asia for many years. I want to say the 3 years preceding me coming to Buffalo in 2006, I lived and worked in India.
Oh my!
Spent some time in Malaysia, China, just a few places, and we were headquartered out of the UK. That said, I came here to Western New York, and continued with continue to be involved within my firm with diversity efforts. That's when it was a diversity. It was only a D for
there was no
before,
E and I.
before the E and I and some from some of the other letters, but involved in that, and really involved in community. I've served on several boards here, mainly because I knew how important it was to have mentors, to be exposed to different opportunities, to be exposed to just different experiences, life experiences, and I knew that I wanted to be able to share that. Education certainly plays a part, formal and academic education, but these other nuanced experiences are also very, very important. So as my career was moving along, I wanted to be able to give back and share, network and share what I could along the way, and then this opportunity came along. But I echo what President Hayward was saying about making sure that companies recognize the fact that there is this cohort of individuals who's there who has prepared themselves for this opportunity and waiting for opportunities, and not just an opportunity for a job, but to be put in spaces for career advancement. So we want to make sure that we're giving tools to help that along, because they don't have the benefit of nepotism, cronyism, all these other informal,
Just a little bit around
all these
there,
informal networks that exist. Even with the right intent, sometimes, I always speak of, there is a lot of energy now through the DEI initiatives that say, let's promote, let's put people in these spaces where, they're getting these opportunities, but without these supportive networks, right? And then one of these things is the objective there is to give individuals this opportunity to succeed. But without this informal network, what happens is they may get just an equal opportunity now to succeed, but they don't always have the same opportunity to fail. And they need that as well, right? Because, you'll see that other people who are in these informal networks or have these informal networks available to them, if they misstep or they don't understand something, then, they have someone who might advocate for them. They might have someone who they can sit down and talk it through and understand how to move forward and navigate through that. And for people who don't have that, it could be career ending.
Right.
So they don't get the same opportunity to fail. Both are equally important. And some of that is making sure that just not giving them that opportunity, but putting an infrastructure around them that's supportive.
How about in terms of success, Darnell, with your group? I mean, you're relatively new with this, but I mean, I know you've been involved with the Urban League prior to this as well. But is there that energy coming together that we're finding new inroads? Between, like you said, the networking of people who are in professional situations. Are they finding other people to take along with them? Are we seeing that?
Absolutely. I think of the young professionals now. This year we celebrated the 10th year of the Buffalo Urban League Young Professionals. So we have the Urban League Young Professionals, so we also have the National Urban League Young Professionals as well. So we fall under that umbrella. We're still an affiliate of the Buffalo Urban League as well. But just thinking over the last 10 years and all the individuals that may have been through or still in the program, may have aged out now, they're all in great careers. A lot of them are entrepreneurs. I'll say even the immediate past president, he's an attorney. We have someone who was the president before as well. He has a great podcast that's getting national recognition. So, you think of those different members that were part of the league that have now been able to birth their own career paths and are just flourishing now.
Are there fields that are maybe a little bit more available in a professional sense for people of color and maybe others that right now are still we're just not seeing that, like you said, the D, E, and I. I mean, is that? Can we make a generalization about that, or is that something maybe it's just uneven playing field that we're seeing across the board? Maybe. Any thoughts?
I would not say that there are any fields that anyone does not have access to, but part of having the young professionals, also grade schoolers, what we refer to as the little leaguers, and beyond the young professional, the guild, just having those auxiliaries. We're still always talking about pipeline, right? So it's also talking about how early is too early, or how early is early enough to start, exposing young people to things. Even if you don't expose them to them, really reinforcing that these opportunities are available to them. Not anything definitive, but the fact that they have the opportunity to just accomplish anything they want to. And then also to nurture their interest in certain things. If they have a interest in the sciences, if they, whatever you can see, whatever spark you can see, or whatever spark you can inspire at the youngest age possible, and begin to nurture that exposure. Sometimes is not as organic as it might be in other communities. So, we need to start, as young as possible to catch those sparks and nurture them, and, make sure that, people understand what some of the prerequisites are, what some of these strengths are that will, move them through some of these latter careers. And, as over time, those things shift.
Right.
But it's really being there for our kids, making sure that they get the basic essentials, and not just the learning, but being in a learning and supportive environment, and trying to do that without safety fears, without things about food insecurity, housing insecurity, so that when they come to school, those things are not weights. That they are, concentrating on learning and having just general great socialization experiences.
How was this? Was there a spark for you that you can recall that gave you kind of that idea that I can be in this place? I mean, you're an international banker. I mean,
yeah. So absolutely, I would say, a lot of it began at home. I jokingly say that my mom always, she would say, you could, son, you could be president. I don't know if she meant the president of the Urban League at the time,
The president of something.
Probably the president of the United States. But now when I look at it, when I think about, there's probably still probably have a couple of good years that I can, make something can happen, right? You just never know. So there's that. But certainly, I spoke about this recently in a conversation I had with people at UB. During my formative years, I would say that I had great examples of mentors. I have some of the best examples of what I should be doing, and I had, equal and as important examples of what I shouldn't be doing. But overall, I want to say that they were both, all of those influences looked at me and probably had some type of, offered some type of guidance, right? None of it was malicious. None of it was against me. All of them were invested in my success. I had some great school teachers, believe it or not, who, really, really pushed me, through education and, just other experiences beyond education, like it's exposing me to theater and to plays and to, books. And I just remember, third grade or something, someone giving me a book and saying, Treasure Island is, you need to read this, just getting to, just expanding my horizons, and really supporting me in any ideas, any thoughts that I might have, and continuing to push. And, I've always had my own passion about learning, and continue to this day to be, thinking about continuous learning, continuous improvement. I believe I would consider myself a lifelong student. But all those things are so very important, and I can remember at various stages of my life, and you sometimes don't get these mentors forever. Your mentors are great. Advocates are even better.
Mm-hmm.
The mentors are, when you're around, they're saying things and promoting you, and advocates are the ones who are in those spaces when you're not. And if they see an opportunity, they bring your name into a space, and they're in places that will allow them um, to make opportunities for you. So, and then if we prepare for them and those opportunities come up, that's those are collisions of success, I believe.
Let's turn that same question then you to Darnell. How about for you, the spark? What was the spark for you that got you going? Can you remember? I mean, I really enjoyed Thomas reflecting, especially I like that idea about not necessarily were all the best advice and some weren't all that good, but you learned something from it anyway. How about for you?
I'll say mine is definitely very similar. I just think of conversations I had with my parents, and of course, your parents going to say you can do anything that you want to, as well as I think of my pastor as well. He would always, every time I would see him, would say, "Mr. President, Mr. President," not knowing that I was going to step into this role. I have no idea. I haven't seen him since, but I'm pretty sure he's seen it on social media everywhere. But also mentors and advocates for me as well. My mentors always, I went up to them for anything, and even to this day, I still have some individuals that I speak with that tell me, "Hey, you're doing something right. Hey, you're doing this wrong. Rethink this." And I love that. I mean, you don't want someone that's always just saying you're doing this good, doing this, keep going. But you always also want someone that's telling you, "Hey, maybe you should rethink this. Let's sit down and talk. Let's do that." And I have those people in my corner. And then also, I think of too, like even within my banking, even at a time when I worked at HSBC. I remember when Mr. Beauford was over our, at the time, I think it was called the African American Heritage Department.
Oh, yeah.
And he
At HSBC?
At HSBC.
Okay.
And I remember seeing him and going to one of the things. And at the time, I knew one of our area managers who she's moved to a different area. And I was like, what does he do? What does he do? I need to learn to see what he does. I want to do what he does. And even from then, I was able to he probably doesn't know this now, but I was able to follow his career just to see different things that he's done in banking. And even now, we're connected now with the Urban League, which is kind of working full circle now.
Absolutely.
So,
That's a great great connection there for sure. How does that
Great.
feel, huh?
Yeah. That's the first time I've heard that. And wow, that's wonderful.
Nice.
That's something. That's something.
Absolutely.
So that's why it's important to just keep doing this work and trying. You just don't. You just never know who's paying attention.
Well, it's got to feel good.
I'm gonna have to talk to him about later. He sprung that one on me. So.
Well, that's hey, we appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
of course.
We're talking from the Buffalo Urban League, their president and CEO Thomas Beauford Jr. and also Darnell Haywood Jr. from their Young Professionals. He's the president of the Young Professionals, as a matter of fact. Thomas, I didn't get a chance to look it over, but the Urban League has a State of Black America, 2023 State of Black America report. Can you give us some of the overview, some of the things that are coming out of that?
Sure. So the State of Black America, the report you're referring to, is something that is published annually by the National Urban League. Now, there are certain affiliates that do their local state of, like there would be a state of Black Buffalo. And we have some great authors here, some who have done published similar journals around Buffalo. But the one that you're referencing, or the State of Black America in general, just talks to very high-level topics that are challenging. In this most recent publication, I did also have the privilege, the honor and the privilege of being one of the contributing writers, along with some very other influential people in mostly outside of the Urban League. But we're looking at just assaults on on democracy, challenges to the voting process, challenges to denying the history of Black and brown people, and just through the educational process, suppressing our history, if you will, and making it irrelevant with the book bannings. But all of these aggressions, I won't even say that they're microaggressions at this point, but all of these things, all of these this systemic erosion of a lot of the advancements that were made towards civil rights, towards equality, for all people, whether it be based on race, gender, just several rollbacks, if you will, on progress, and just addressing that and the danger of it, and just really trying to heighten awareness in that these things individually are alarming in and of themselves, but cumulatively, they are, a real very aggressive threat, and building momentum, and having a trajectory that's going against years, decades of progress and improvements. No, it's not perfect, but to roll those things back and to consider what it took just to make, just to have those advancements. That we should all be alarmed. We should raise that level of alert, and not only that, advocate and push back against it. And it's being done, not in some of the more kind of devastating and drastic ways that it was done in terms of violence before, but it's actually being legislated and appearing in some of our highest forms of the democratic government. We're seeing these things, and so we have to make sure that we are not that we are very woke and understanding of all these things as they happen individually and collectively.
As you were saying that, and you did say, you see it, you see the issues, you see it, like you use the word trajectory. Is it your sense that there's not enough of an alarm about those issues right now in the general conversation, that not enough people, and I'm not just talking about people of color, are seeing that trajectory and are as concerned about it as obviously you are and other leaders inside the Urban League?
Right. I think, I would not say that people are not alarmed, but also we have to make sure that as these things are happening, many of them are like just cracking the door open for something that we know could be even more pervasive or even more damaging. When we see practices that, or when we see legislation in our highest courts around affirmative action in around a few schools and in their practices, does that open the door to people saying, that become this very slippery slope into, should we start reducing or pulling away from DEI practices in other in other institutions, right? Will that start to now creep into other people saying, well, we're just gonna start to back away from all of this progress and momentum that has been made lately, rightfully so. You might say it's late coming, but it was going. And when we talk about trajectory, it was going with the right level of momentum, right level of volume and velocity, and we're building on that. And to have something that starts to reverse that in any way is something that we have to look at, not only as the incident of what happened, but what that's opening the door to, and making sure that it does not move and turn the tide and start to shift things in a different direction.
Darnell, you just heard us on that conversation, and I'm not going to ask you necessarily to review the State of Black America, the 2023 State of Black America report. But at the same time, you heard what Thomas was saying. I'm curious about some of your feelings about that, what you're seeing, and whether you have similar concerns, and then maybe that's what you're hearing also from some of your peers.
Well, when I think of even the last part, as far as like the DEI efforts being changed, thinking of a lot of corporations now and a lot of positions that had that chief diversity officer, a lot of those roles are going away. They've combined them now for it to be, you see now it as a more of a corporate strategy, as I think it's corporate responsibility, where it's ESG, environmental, social, and governance. So a lot of your focus is not more so on diversifying that workforce, but it's more so, are you taking care of the environment? And then you have a little bit of, well, let's make sure that we're social compliant. And then that last piece of governance, making sure that it's all going through. And, I think of too this year for voting. I mean, this is going to be a huge year coming up in 2024. And I know for us with the young professionals, we just definitely want to make sure that our voices are heard, making sure that the community's voices are heard, and that a lot of programming is geared towards making sure that you're going out to vote. I mean, I think of even the local vote that we had this past November. I went to vote at 6:00 p.m. and of course I live in the city of Buffalo, and I was number 20 at my polling place. So, I mean, I don't think a lot of us know the importance of voting and why it's important. So, definitely make sure that we focus on that.
If I'm not mistaken, I think the primary elections in the Maston and Ellicott districts back in June, I think, only had 16% turnout among Democrats. So let's address that a little bit, Thomas. That, well, like Darnell said, shows up at 6:00, and there's only been a handful of people there voting. Sure, it's 2023, and it's not the big sexy election that's going to come up in 2024. But what about both from an attitude standpoint among voters, and especially voters of color, and these issues that we've been raising, but just what you're kind of sensing about that, and then perhaps what are going to be the strategies? Time is fast running out.
Right. So first, let me say that all elections are important. Local elections, and
We see it on school boards.
School boards, all are election. They all inform policy. They all kind of roll up to the point where you're even looking at your electoral college, right? So all of this is happening. We raised the alarm around the census. Decennial census. We were talking about, we have to be looking at how our district lines are drawn. All these things are, part of our democratic process, and if we don't watch them as they're being assembled, as all of these pieces are so intertwined and so interdependent, we have to look at all of them. Certainly, there should be another level of alarm in terms of not only not participating, but watching out for forces that are eroding, diluting, or just making it more difficult to get to those paths of voting and being a part of that, the whole civic and democratic process. So we have to be very vigilant. Very vigilant.
Yes.
And diligent about what we're doing here. Darnell spoke about some of the changes. I'm going to shift a little bit. Some of the changes that might be happening in corporate America. We have to be very careful about even things are being homogenized or diluted. We have to be very, very careful about those things because the DEI process was very deliberate and intentional
yep.
and focused. And, when you start to group it with other things, not to say that those things are as important,
right.
Environmental responsibility and, governance, all of those things are certainly important, but we don't want to lose sight and have some of this effort kind of losing its prioritization as a function of being grouped with some other, very some other avenues, some other elements that need attention as well.
Sure.
So I would say that we have to make sure that we're defending democracy by our own actions, but also be aware of the actions of others, even the slightest beginning. We're walking into this this winter season, right? As kids, You know how you start to build a snowman, right? You start off with this very, very, very small snowball, if you will, and you just, if you just keep packing it around, the next thing you know is it becomes this huge other thing. So we have to be vigilant again about how this is happening, and make sure that we're in spaces and speaking up, and and those who letting voices be heard. And as an organization, I always say that the Buffalo Urban League, we don't speak for all Black and brown people, but we do speak up for them, right? We amplify the voices of our community in spaces where we can. And then the Urban League, as in and of itself, many would think of us in our empowerment strategy of being social service program administrators, but I would say that we're more social justice advocates now. And we do that not just through our services and programs, because we do have our offices and affiliates across the country, but we also have our office on Capitol Hill, right, where we know that it's just as important to be involved in the legislative process, to influence the legislative process. So we also have our Washington Bureau office. We have our conferences during the year. We also have our National Legislative Policy Conference in the spring of every year, where we bring the affiliates from around the country to Washington, D.C., and make sure that we engage our civic leaders, that we meet at their offices, that we go to these many large agencies who are responsible for federal programs, and we interact and make sure that we're on their radar, and let them know that they're on our radar as well.
And that will do it for Producers Picks. We would like to thank our guests Stephen Tucker, Thomas Beauford Jr., and Darnell Haywood Jr. If you missed anything or you'd like to hear it again, you can get this program as a podcast wherever you get your podcasts or on the Amplify BTPM app. Each episode is also online at WBFO.org. I'm Thomas O'Neill White. Thanks for listening.
This is the Buffalo-Toronto Public Media History Bite, bringing you a peek into significant historical events for the week of February 5th through February 11th. I'm your host and program director, Tom Barrich. February 5th, 1826, Buffalo resident and future president Millard Fillmore marries in Moravian, New York. The first meeting of the Erie County Anti-Slavery Society occurred in East Aurora, New York on February 7th, 1837. February 10, 1810, the town of Buffalo establishes itself as it separates from the town of Clarence, New York. We're certainly no stranger to winter conditions in Western New York, especially in the last couple of years, but the coldest day on record for Western New York was February 9th, 1934, when the temperature hit a very chilly negative 21 degrees Fahrenheit. And for our Canadian friends and neighbors, that is a whopping negative 29.5 degrees Celsius. Well, remember what I said about Millard Fillmore at the beginning of this segment? February must have had a special meaning to Millard because he married his second wife, Caroline Carmichael, on February 10th, 1858. You've been listening to the WBFO History Bite. Discover more stories about Western New York's past on the Buffalo History Museum's website. Learn more at buffalohistory.org. For Buffalo-Toronto Public Media, I'm Tom Barrich.